Mateus sat on a rock at the edge of the Amazon forest. In front of him, the river flowed slowly, and the wind made the leaves dance on the trees. In those moments of silence, nature spoke to him, but his heart was restless. Mateus had not always been like this. Only a few months earlier, he was an environmental biologist immersed in the frenzy of Sao Paulo. He spent his days running from one project to another, desperately trying to save what he could of the threatened ecosystems without ever feeling listened to. And if you want to know how Mateus will transform his inner conflict and find a new purpose, keep listening to this inspiring story. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more stories like this. His move to the village on the edge of the forest had been an act of surrender, not to nature, but to the modern world that did not seem to want to stop. There he met João, the old master, who had lived in harmony with the forest all his life. João taught him that silence was not just the absence of noise, but a language of nature that could be understood only by those who knew how to listen with their hearts. As Mateus settled into the slow pace of life in the village, news arrived that a large company would soon begin clearing a large area of the forest. The pain of seeing his refuge threatened overwhelmed him, bringing to the surface emotions he had tried to suppress. He remembered his past in Sao Paulo, the frustration and anger he felt against those who would not listen to his words. An internal conflict ignited within him. The desire to fight with strength clashed with the Zen principles that João had taught him. Have you ever felt the need to fight for something you believe in? Share your experience in the comments below. We would love to hear your story. João watched Mateus in silence, aware of his inner turmoil. One day, as they sat together at the foot of a huge mahogany tree, João told him the story of his youth. He too had been an activist, but his actions were driven by anger and desperation. He had seen friends fall to violence and learned at a painful price that true strength is found not in anger, but in transformative peace. Mateus listened in silence, pondering those words. His resolve to follow the path of Zen was tested when he met Gabriel, the chief engineer of the company that was destroying the forest. Gabriel was not a simple antagonist. He had a story. He had grown up in a poor family and had fought hard to become an engineer. His motivation was fueled not only by money, but by the hope of using the profits from that work to invest in renewable and sustainable energy. During a tense confrontation between the two, Gabriel confessed that he felt a moral conflict every time they cut down a tree. He was afraid of losing his job and disappointing his family, but at the same time he could not ignore the destruction he caused. Mateus, seeing the human side of Gabriel, chose to talk to him about the silence of nature and how, by listening to it, he could find a solution that did not involve destruction. Gabriel seemed skeptical at first, but something in Mateus's words resonated with him. He wasn't just another activist. There was a calm, a certainty in his voice that defied logic. Mateus invited him to join one of their collective meditations in the forest, and for the first time, Gabriel accepted. Meditation can transform not only our spirit, but also our way of seeing the world. If you have never tried it, why not start today? Take a moment to be silent and discover what nature can teach you. During the meditation, something extraordinary happened. The forest seemed to breathe in unison with the protesters. Gabriel, who until that moment had seen nature as a resource to be exploited, began to perceive it as a living presence, full of energy and wisdom. The air around him became thicker, and in the silence he could almost hear a heartbeat, as if the earth itself was speaking. He rose from that moment changed, not entirely sure of what he would do, but with the knowledge that his path would be different. The village itself was a microcosm of transformation. People who had initially doubted Mateus and João's peaceful resistance were now beginning to see the fruits of that approach. Pedro, a young man known for his impulsiveness and aggression, had always been on the front lines of violent protests. Yet through Joao's words and Mateus's guidance, he had discovered the power of meditation and inner calm. Pedro began to understand that anger and violence were only superficial reactions to deeper, more complex problems. Don't forget that true strength comes from inner peace. Subscribe to our channel for more transformation stories and learn how meditation can help you find your way. As change spread through the village, other communities began to follow suit. News of the peaceful protests reached international media, and what began as a small local movement grew into a global phenomenon. Mateus and Joao were invited to speak at conferences and share their experiences, inspiring others around the world to seek peaceful, conscious solutions to environmental crises. The most striking aspect of this movement was Gabriel's transformation. The man who at first seemed to be just a determined opponent of deforestation became one of the main supporters of the reforestation project. Gabriel began to promote the idea of a new sustainable economy based on respect for nature and the conscious use of resources. His actions not only influenced his company, but also other companies that, inspired by his change, decided to review their business models. Mateus and Gabriel's story teaches us that true change always begins in the heart of a person. If you believe in inner transformation, continue following our journey and discover how we can make a difference together. In the end, the forest was not only saved, but became a symbol of hope and rebirth. Mateus's village had become a sacred place, where people from all over the world came to learn from nature and meditate on the meaning of their existence. Mateus knew that this was only the first battle won, but that the real war against environmental destruction continued. The silence of nature, however, had taught him that even the greatest revolutions begin with the inner change of a single individual. Mateus watched the river flow and realized that his fight was no longer just for the survival of the forest, but to awaken humanity to the value of respect and deep connection with all that exists. He felt that, despite the challenges ahead, he had found a greater purpose, a mission that connected him not only to his village, but to every corner of the earth. And in that silence, in that newfound peace, there was the promise of a different tomorrow, where man would learn to live in harmony with nature without exploiting it anymore. If you also want to be part of this change and believe in a sustainable future, subscribe to our channel and join our community of people who want to make a difference. Together, we can build a better world. The journey was long, but Mateus knew that with every step he was moving towards a new era, one where the language of nature and Zen philosophy would lead humanity out of the darkness of destruction and into the light of awareness.